Now to the horrors committed by Hamas against innocent Israelis just over a fortnight ago. And of course, I've got to warn you, some of this stuff is distressing even just to talk about. More than 1,400 people were killed, more than 200 are still held hostage, and yet the world has tended to move on, more intent now on criticising Israel for the way it's trying to root out the Hamas Islamist terrorists. Now, I showed you last night how the Israeli government had organised to show journalists some raw videos showing what happened in southern Israel because it was needed to thwart the constant denial. Remember, one ABC journalist said it was BS that babies had been beheaded. At a Sydney beach this morning, actually, I noticed posters showing some of the hostages still missing, a little attempt to keep our focus on them, as we should. But have a look at what happened to similar posters on a Melbourne beach, defaced with graffiti, effectively denying the atrocities, pretending it's all made up. It's this anti-Semitic denial that needs to be countered, and it explains why the Israeli government decided to show videos to the journalists last night. Now, I've got to say, I've seen a lot of terrible vision publicly available and authentic, and it is truly gut-wrenching. But what the journalists were shown in Israel overnight, well, we're told it's truly atrocious. Here's some of their reaction.
I beg the Israeli government, please release the footages. Release what I saw. The world needs to see this.
We saw, I don't even know, I had to leave after 35 minutes because eventually I had seen enough.
It's just sickening, isn't it? You've heard the stories. You know what was happening, what happened in those parts of southern Israel when the Hamas terrorists incurred there from Gaza. And these journalists have sat through it and seen it to verify it, to be the eyes and ears of the world, effectively. We can't really show you the journalists even describing the worst of what they saw. It's just too horrific to relay that stuff. These are the most vile, hateful and gross acts of terrorism you could ever imagine. They're carried out against innocent, unarmed civilians, including children, teenagers, mothers and grandmothers. But the way this stuff is glossed over is just appalling. For instance, the ABC, our own taxpayer-funded media, interviewed a Hamas leader.
Good evening. Thank you very much.
How did it help your cause to send thousands of your fighters over the border into Israel to murder, terrorise and kidnap Israeli civilians?
I think...
Now, I'm not going to show you what this bloke said. He's the leader of an Islamist extremist terrorist group that's just killed 1,400 people. And who cares about his cause? His cause is the elimination of Jewish people and Israel. He doesn't have a legitimate cause. He should be in jail, not spreading his lies here or on taxpayer-funded TV. I mean, he told the ABC that Hamas were actually only out fighting against Israeli soldiers and wanted to take soldiers as hostages. The civilians, he suggested that was all an accident. This is a blatant lie. We've got the footage of them shooting kids at a music festival, shooting families and children in their homes, shooting families in cars trying to escape, taking hostages at gunpoint, innocent girls, dropping grenades into bomb shelters where people were trying to get away from them. People don't need to hear the lies from Hamas, no matter if some ABC journo challenges them occasionally. This stuff is vile, and the ABC should not broadcast their lies. But today they remain unapologetic.
Do you stand by that editorial decision?
I do, Senator. I didn't know it in advance, but I do stand by it. I think that I do think it's editorially justified to make that interview. We interviewed a range of people post those attacks, certainly those people that represented Israel to begin with, to understand them.
They spoke to Israel too? That makes it okay because they spoke to Israel too? The idea that there is some equivalence here between the innocent victims, the country whose citizens have been slaughtered simply because they are Jews, the country that supports law and order and democracy and security, and they're lumped in as just the other side of the story, as opposed to the bloodthirsty terrorist organisation that exists to not just kill Jews, but eliminate all Jewish people and eradicate their country? Look, if you've got any ethics or just any values at all, you understand these are not two even sides to be given equal coverage like it's some sort of state election campaign. Israel versus Hamas is not the same as Israel versus the Palestinian Liberation Organisation or the Palestinian Authority. Israel versus Hamas is about good versus evil. It's about order versus chaos, life versus death, and innocence versus guilt. You can't give these things equal billing. Does the ABC not understand that Hamas is not the Palestinian people? Hamas is not a negotiating partner. Hamas is ISIS. It's Al-Qaeda. It's Jamaat Islamiyah. And the ABC wants to treat it like the Harper Valley PTA. And it says it might even give a platform to more terrorist organisations in the future.
Senator, it's not something we rush to. It's something we do take very seriously when we do, but I wouldn't rule out that we might, depending on the situation, interview somebody representing a terrorist organisation.
Oh, so Hezbollah perhaps could be next?
Senator, those editorial decisions are there for good journalism reasons. They are there to dispel the claims that are being made.
Look, surely this bloke can't remain in charge at the ABC. He just doesn't get it. He doesn't understand journalism. He doesn't understand the ABC Charter. He's just the figurehead of a staff-run collective that's out of control. Look, most of us have got some time for some aspects of the ABC. It's an organisation that will probably always be with us, so it needs some leadership. It needs to understand the values that taxpayers expect it to uphold. Not partisan values, not political, just decent, democratic and humane values.